Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 11th show of the Trader Merlin Show. A day of remembrance, reflection. I spent a lot of time thinking about life and just all the weirdness that goes on in the world on this day. I don't know why. Just picked this day for it. So I hope you had a good one and kind of thought about a lot of the important things to you in your life. So let's dive into what's going on with our markets today. Tough one out there. I see some of you talking about this rally. Killed your covered calls, Lisa? Well, I had a nice short position early on. As we broke the Globex lows this morning, I was shorting, and boom, all of a sudden that turnaround was just insane. And you guys take guesses at what it was? You know what it was? What was said? What was done? What caused this market to have such a gigantic rally for pretty much the remainder of the day? I'll bring up the charts here so we can look at that. I'll go right there. It is also Patriot Day. Go America. News born this day. Wow, that's an ominous day to be born. Ominous day to be born. Yeah, we had a 4% rally in the NASDAQ off those lows. That one just stopped me out right there, unfortunately. Good thing I wasn't loading the boat short as it rallied out. I guess it would have been much different. All right, so let's talk about what was said. No, and I don't think it's a 50 basis point cut coming. Although, one of my former colleagues was talking about how he thinks it's got to be 50% or 50 basis points, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it could be. So what was it? What caused this market rally? It goes back to my graphic for the day. It's this guy right here. It's Jensen Huang. So Jensen Huang was at a Goldman Sachs conference. They call it, I forget what the name of the conference is, but it's a private thing. You can't get in there, but, information does leak out. The presenters do leak out. And Jensen Huang was one of the most anticipated presenters of the day. As you guys know, my view is that Nvidia is what's really fueling this entire rally. It is basically all eyes on tech. And if you look at Amazon and Microsoft and Google and think, oh, these companies are great, they're going to do amazing. Yeah, they will. But they got to have those NVIDIA chips. Without those chips, they're going to start to fall behind. So there's this race to amass as many chips as possible. So Jensen Huang was out there speaking about this today, and I caught some of the excerpts. Some very interesting things were said. So I'll go to my graphics here so we can see that one there. And we can talk about CPI as well. Yeah, Andrea, it is partly CPI, but let's talk about NVIDIA demand. I didn't write down the quotes because it was just kind of flying around trying to do too many things, but essentially, he said he felt a little bit bad because so many people are relying on NVIDIA. NVIDIA right now is, they've delayed that Blackwell chip, which they announced several months back, which at face value looks absolutely incredible. Of course, I don't personally utilize anything of that kind of CPU power, but for these major companies, could be a big piece. So he said that, these cloud companies that are buying these chips, while they may seem really expensive, and yeah, millions of dollars for a rack, it could be, but for every dollar they spend, they're getting $5 in return in rental space and people using those services. So I talked about this the other day with you guys when I was saying, look, you have all these companies that have made statements publicly on their earnings calls, like Sundar Pichai of Alphabet or Google. You also have Tim Cook of Apple. You have Microsoft as well. Sundar Pichai is, I always get my CEOs mixed up. Anyway, all three of those CEOs on the earnings call talking about how much money they've spent on infrastructure and they're not getting the rate of return on it yet. And that was the asterisk was yet. And Jensen Huang really kind of drove home that point. It's like, look, we're just starting to see people utilize and write these services on it. And I think it really lit this real bullish fire for tech today and made everybody look at NVIDIA going, that's what we should be buying. So when you look at the chart here of NVIDIA today, let's go to how about NVDA, not MDVA. There's your major turnaround. Now, I mentioned the market was off 4% rally from those lows, but look what NVIDIA did from that same window of time. You're talking a 9% rally. Now, all the other companies in there, I'll just bring up Google, for example, so we can kind of see what that one looks like as well. You had a pretty significant jump in Google. All of these Magnificent Seven stocks performed rather well. Apple not as strong. Meta, great day for Meta as well. So a lot of this just going back to demand. And he's like, look, we can't keep up with the demand. We are so backlogged. And he's like, look, if I get 3 solid hours of sleep a night, that's all I need. I want to keep on working and building and trying to deliver all the stuff that we promised we're going to deliver. So I think it really gave Wall Street, the big money, confidence that NVIDIA not only is going to continue to innovate and make better, faster products that will propel earnings going forward, but also that they're going to be doing everything in their power to make sure they get delivered on time. Now, granted, there have been some delays, but this is what really caused it. And the reason I know that this is what caused it is a lot of people pointing at that CPI data. And we'll look at more charts here in a second, but let's real quickly bring up that CPI data. That CPI data came out 1 hour before the markets opened. So if I go over here to when the CPI data came out, this is Nvidia. This is MetaMask. This is Meta Platforms. Right here, 5:30 in the morning, right there, where I put my little vertical line. That's when the CPI numbers came out, and the market did rally a little bit, and then sold off. And then when Jensen Huang was speaking, just absolutely started to rip. And I guess we can go to a broader market, which would be a little bit better for us. Let's go check out that NASDAQ or S&P. So there's your rally out of it. All of that really, again, I believe was because of Jensen's speech, and then couple that with the numbers that were released today for CPI. So let me go into those CPI numbers just so we know what they are and how they're going to impact you. I tweeted out this morning, which I'll try to do more of. You look at the CPI number itself. This is month over month. We came out at 0.2. That was the expectation. And again, as long as we kind of keep sitting there at 0.2, that gives us an overall inflation rate of 2.4%, which is pretty good. And you can see we've stacked up side by side here at 0.2. When you look at the year over year, which is what I'm more interested in, you'll notice we do have a pretty clear trend to the downside. Drifting lower, making lower lows, lower highs. We went sideways for a few months, but now dropping even lower. So this, I think, had a lot of people feeling very optimistic about the market today, that inflation might be behind us, and that may mean that the Fed can now stimulate the markets a little bit more. Does that mean 50 basis point cuts? Well, if you look at the odds-on favorite, the statistics over here on what those rate cuts may be, I still think I'm going to win. I still think it's going to be a 25 basis point cut. And right now, the market says there's an 85% chance that we're going to see those numbers come out at 25 basis point cuts. And notice the shift. You go 1 month ago, there was a 50% chance, 51% chance of a 50 basis point cut. Today, 15. So significant move, and as we get closer, obviously next week is the big week, 25 basis points is probably the most likely. Now we'll look at the December here as well to see what does the future look like. Well, at this moment, right now, there is still the expectation of 4 rate cuts by the end of the year, which means at least one of these meetings, and there's only 3 left, we're going to have one 50 basis point cut and another 25 on top of the 25 we get next week. So I still think that's very aggressive, but you never know. Could turn out like that, but that's what the market is forecasting right now. Big Ev said, Huang said demand is intense and keeping up is keeping him up. Yeah, it is. I love the guy. I really do enjoy Jensen Huang. I think his speeches are on point. I love a guy who doesn't care about industry norms. He, I think, single-handedly is bringing back the men's black leather bomber jacket. He should own stock in some company like that just makes bomber jackets. If I was a company that made black leather bomber jackets, I would just sponsor Jensen. Like, you wear our jackets all the time. We want to use you. Yeah, definitely a lot of demand. And again, I'd like to see the full interview. I just caught a couple clips that what was posted on social media from that Goldman Sachs conference. I did look for it, but I couldn't find it. But I do want to watch the whole thing and see who else was speaking at that conference. You've got to love it how the elite, the big financial firms, have a window into the markets that you and I just don't get. We get the after the fact, Associated Press news release of it, but not the actual event, which would be much more exciting. So all in all, these numbers do look pretty good. That CPI number, if we're down at 2.5%, remember the Fed said that 2% is where he wants to be. 2% is where he wants to be, and well, if we're at 2.5, and that's of course on CPI, we need to look at the core PCE price index, which is calculated slightly differently. Either way, very good sign that markets are headed back towards where the government wants it. The only thing that I feel is the big question mark now is simply the unemployment numbers. Right? We had all last week a slew of jobs data, some of which was not great, but I don't think it was catastrophically bad, which would warrant a 50 basis point cut. But what the heck do I know? I'm just going to have to trade it. Lisa says, members only, did they make leather bomber jackets? They should come back and sponsor Jensen Huang. Buy the rights to members only, which is probably bankrupt now. Just buy the brand name and then come back and say, Jensen, we'll make black leather bomber jackets just for you. All right, another little piece before I jump in and kind of top 10 here is meme stock city. So GameStop obviously is the one that started all the frenzy of meme stocks and has been the laughing stock, in my opinion, of the market for a while. Here is GME. So they reported yesterday after hours, and you can see the big gap down today, down about 12%. It was down a little bit more early on. And ultimately, I would think that for many of you that look at this as an astute investor, you kind of look at this chart here long term and you go, something's wrong with this. This doesn't look right. And you're probably going to shy away from it. And then you have the obvious pieces, which is it's GameStop. They sell physical games and maybe gaming accessories now. Probably want to shy away from a company like that. It seems like I mentioned many times, this is the blockbuster of the video game world where, it's probably not going to make it. Now, what do their numbers look like? How bad were they? Can Roaring Kitty and Gil actually save GameStop, make it pop again, getting it up to, $100? Probably not. Margaret says, it will die with the mall. I think that the mall actually has a much better chance of survival, right? We can go to a mall to maybe it's restaurants or entertainment or some shops. I certainly do like shopping at some stores, but I don't even, actually I can't say this. I was going to say I don't even own a game player that has a CD, but the last PlayStation I bought was a PlayStation 4, which does have a DVD player in it, so I could actually buy physical games, but now your PlayStations and your Xboxes, you just go to the store online and download it from there. So there's really no need to buy physical. It's like warehouse music. You may get a renaissance and maybe it becomes like, vinyl, and you have these great record stores that are around. I love going to a record store and thumbing through a crate of records and finding a diamond in the rough artist that I'd really like to have. But that's one-off. That's not mass market. I think the numbers for GameStop, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I think they made $14 million last quarter. Like that's almost nothing. Here we go. I just brought it up for you. GameStop earned $14.8 million in the quarter. In the quarter. I mean, that's nothing for one of these major companies like this. So yeah, it's going to slowly die away and go away. Here's some of the numbers just so we can see them, and I'll explain kind of what the tactics are being used. This is something that was kind of a sleight of hand. They've done this before, and I don't like it. This just further pushes the value of their stock down. But number one, they were expected to lose 8.5 cents per share, and they came out actually making 1 penny per share. So you're like, wow, that's great. Yeah, hold on a second. Their revenue slid from the expectations were 896 million. They came out at 798 million. I should put an M on there because it looks like $798. Now that would be a big miss, wouldn't it? The previous numbers for this, there, I got the million in there. The previous revenue numbers last quarter was 1.16 billion a year ago. So year over year, they've gone from 1.16 billion down to 798 million. Clearly sliding. That's what, 30, 31, 32, 33% slide in revenue over the last year. And I don't see anything that would cause that to change. I mentioned to you guys before, I thought it would be interesting if GameStop opened up an interactive like game hall. I think that might be one piece they could do to change their business model. Yes, you come down to our facilities. Since we have all these hubs and GameStops around the world, we can connect everybody via high-speed internet, and we can now host game tournaments, of which there would be sponsorships for. And companies like, games like Borderlands. Well, you can now play Borderlands, which takes hours to play. It's an infinite game, really. And you earn payments. You earn rewards from sponsors. That would probably bring a lot of people in there. Maybe they buy something while they're there, but something's got to change. Now, here's the last little piece of this, which has me raising an eyebrow. They announced an at-the-market stock offering of up to 20 million shares. So what that means is they're basically going to just issue more shares. They're going to dilute the current value of the share price that they have. So this is not a good thing. If you're a shareholder, this is like getting kicked in the teeth because essentially your shares are going to drop by a percentage. I believe the number was 4%, 4 or 5%. So just by the release, if they sold 20 million new shares at market, GameStop would raise a lot of money, but then of course your share value would drop because now you're diluted by almost 5%. This is not good. Not good at all. So I brought that up just because, it was a certain big piece of the day looking at their numbers, although I'm not a fan of GameStop. You guys know I think it's going to go to zero. It's just a matter of time. But I wanted to cover that because people asked me about the GameStop's earnings yesterday, which I glazed over. Indigo says, how about that DJT stock? Yeah, continuing on. We talk about this one and how knowing lockup periods. So here's DJT. We're back down. Another big down day today, down 10%. People ask, and I'll get into the debate in just a second. I know we don't want to talk politics, and I don't either, but the debate was kind of important overall. A lot of people are believing that DJT stock is a proxy for his prospects for becoming president again. I don't believe that personally. I do think that if he is, got a good shot at being president, that DJT will probably start to rally. But anybody who is paying attention knows that there's a millions and millions, or I should do it like Donald Trump does, millions and billions and trillions of shares are going to come to market. He's going to be unloading a lot of this DJT. He has to wait. I don't know the exact date. I had it before. I thought it was like the 19th or something like that. But it's probably next week where he can now officially start to sell his DJT shares. So if anything, I'd be more inclined to think that this is going to continue to the south side, ultimately getting back down to its SPAC price, which was $10 and possibly even lower than that. If he does become president and he utilizes this, great. That'll help anybody who's a DJT shareholder. But I can't believe that he would actually be using DJT, Truth Media or Truth Social, as opposed to Twitter. I mean, Twitter is quickly becoming more and more powerful from a reach perspective. I actually just paid to get Twitter verified because it gives me more access and reach overall. I'm not a huge social media fan, but I feel like if you want to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and have access to good information, it seems like Twitter is the place to go. Lisa, September 20th? Okay. Would that be a Friday? Let me check out a calendar right here. I think that might be a Friday. Yeah, it's options expiration Friday. Well, that will be an interesting Friday, to be sure. There are better places for trades than GME and DJT. Big Eb is 100% right. However, Big Eb, you've been doing this a while. So you know that trading things that are extremely volatile, potentially scams, are a dangerous thing to invest in, right? The astute investor is going to go with solid companies that have good products or services, or terrible companies that are going to continue to drift lower and just ride that downtrend. But easier to find a company that's doing well, like an Nvidia or some of these tech firms, and just ride those trends. But a lot of people who have smaller accounts, they don't want to wait a year to make 8% rate of return. Because if they have $100, they make an 8% rate of return, they made $8. You can't do anything with that. They're looking for the 100, 200, 300% rates of return. And typically those people will fizzle out and blow all their account and money. So it is what it is. It just gets a lot of attention. GameStop certainly a big attention getter a couple years back. I'm buying the Premium X to test AI Grok. Yep, I am too. I will be playing with Grok here soon. I have not. I am a Chat GPT guy. I love it, but Grok. In the interview I just recently listened to with Elon Musk, again, if you want to see some great interviews or listen to some great interviews with Elon Musk, just go to the Lex Friedman podcast. He's had him on like 4 or 5 times. They become really good friends. And, Elon, as eccentric and bizarre as he is, he really has an interesting mind. It's almost savant-like how much he knows about different topics. So I'm doing one right now on Neuralink. There's an 8-hour podcast with him, Elon Musk, and like all the developers of Neuralink, which is kind of fascinating. Mike guess Trump will use X until Elon kicks him off. Elon won't kick him off, Liz. Remember, Trump is now buddy-buddy with Elon Musk. Trump's smart. He knows Elon Musk is probably one of the most influential people on social media and watched people in the world. So whether you love him or hate him, you got to put him by your side. And now all of a sudden, Elon Musk is a Trump supporter. He's an anti-Kamala Harris person. For him, it's about freedom of speech and dictatorships is what he's pointing at Kamala. And then Trump said, well, this guy's better, at least from a business perspective. But who knows? Ultimately, got to do your own research. Don't listen to what Elon Musk says. So let's see. I've never used TS. You talking Trade Station or Thinkorswim? And promising Musk a position. That's right, Lisa. He did. They discussed a position. I forgot the exact name, but basically Elon Musk's position would be an auditor of all the different government agencies to go through and look for efficiencies and see where we can cut. And man, if you look at what he did with Twitter, if you're a government employee, you're probably not going to vote against Trump now just because you don't want Musk doing that because your job's going to be probably cut. Oh, Truth Social. Yeah, Margaret, neither have I because you have to register and log in. And I don't even want to register. I don't even want to register. Yeah, buddies for now, but only until they're not. True. Very true. So let me go into one last little bit. I received like 6 questions, and I didn't want to go into this, but I do want to bring it up because it's the time. So my apologies. I know some of you don't like this, but we did have the presidential debate last night. I did not want to watch it. I was forced to watch pieces of it before I went to trivia last night, and it was pretty much as I expected. It was like 2 10-year-old children fighting over piñata candy, insulting each other, berating each other, and it, to me, very unbecoming of what America should be. However, these debates do give you clues as to how they're going to position themselves. So as we get closer to November's election, if I can see one party getting more favoritism and higher probability of winning, then I might start to build some positions in my portfolio that tailor that. Now, I didn't get anything out of the election as far as, oh, this is what's going to happen. It was a lot of, I'm going to do this, and look how great I am, and look what I've done, and I'm going to do this and this and this. Look, I can sit here and tell you guys that I'm going to finish my book. I'm going to write my 3 movies. I'm going to go back and get my engineering degree, and I can tell you all this stuff. The reality is probably not going to happen. The book hopefully will happen. But most of them are just, I don't know. I feel like I went through and I did a search on the transcripts. Guess how many times Bitcoin was brought up in that entire multiple hour, I don't know, insult match and bickering match. Bitcoin was not mentioned one time. Neither was cryptocurrencies. Market was mentioned twice. And there were a couple other key words. Inflation was mentioned a few times. Of course, that is a really big hot topic where they can point the finger at each other. But as far as presidential debate, look, there was really nothing there that excited me or made me feel better for either candidate. You could make arguments that one candidate handled themselves a little bit better. Maybe didn't seem as flustered, but it is what it is. I'm hoping that if there's multiples of these, the latter ones will start to get us, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my actionable items. And there was a little bit of that, but nothing that I think directly impacted me and my investment. So there we go. Yeah, Big Gab, Liz, 0. Didn't mention it one time. And that may change in future debates. That may change. All right. So yeah, that was it. I'm not going to go any deeper into that presidential debate one, but that's what people have been asking me about. Politicians promise many things they have no control over, cannot fail. Yeah, the one that I think is interesting is the idea, and if you heard him say it many times, that he's going to get all of these other countries, to pay, that they're going to start paying us, and that's going to happen in the form of tariffs. A good tariff just means you and I are going to spend more money. It's a tax that you and I will pay, because if we order, let's say you got your iPhone here, and it costs them, I'm making up numbers here because I don't have them off the top of my head, but let's say it's $400 to manufacture this at the factories in China. They bring them over to America, and with no tariffs, Apple sells them for $1,000. So it goes from $400 to $1,000. Apple got a $700 markup. If they slap on tariffs on these things, and let's say it's 100% tariff, so it's a $400 item, comes to America, and the tariff's now making $800 by the time it hits our border, Apple's no longer going to charge you $1,100 for this phone. It's going to be like $1,500 or $1,600. You're paying that. I'm paying that. Raising tariffs on other countries is simply a tax for you and me in the long haul. It raises the cost of goods and services. The businesses will not lose out. The businesses will just pass that on to you and me, which may ultimately lead to more inflation because prices are rising. So I always thought that one, Indigo, because the tariffs have been done before and it failed miserably. It sounds, I thought I said $1,100, Lisa. Do you believe any of the presidential polls, Merlin? I'll be honest, I don't really, because it depends on who's making the poll. If you have, one side leading to the left, oh, so-and-so's winning. One side's leading to the right, oh, so-and-so's winning. And, a poll is just people that typically are calling and asking, hey, would you have time for a short survey? I won't. I don't I thought I got the numbers right, guys. So my bad. I thought I said 400 to 1100, but maybe I made a mistake. But you guys get the point. That item, if it's more expensive hitting our borders, the companies are going to make the same markup that they made before. They're just going to raise those prices. So if I got my numbers wrong, my apologies. Yeah, Margaret, I don't watch the polls. I'm forced to. I think we're all forced to say, oh, so-and-so's leading and Trump this or Kamala this. I don't care. I don't pay attention to it. In my mind, I'm pretty sure on who I'm going to vote for, and the polls don't make a difference to me. I'm always going to vote with my heart and what I think is the best for the country, and what's I think it's what's best for the country obviously will be my ultimate thing. So yeah, I already pretty much know who I'm going to vote for. I will not be disclosing that to you and telling you because it doesn't really matter. I want you to vote for who you want to vote for. I should have no sway in that in any way, shape, or form. All right, let's go to our mercados. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go from the bottom to the top. As long as one of the candidates wins, it's bullish for Bitcoin. It may be, Martin. It may be. If Trump wins, it'll be bullish for Bitcoin. If Kamala, it's not quite clear yet. She may change her stance on some things, and I do feel like she's starting to pull away from the typical Democratic Party right now, which is totally anti-crypto. And that may be a good thing. I made this point before when we had Kennedy running. We had 2 out of 3 candidates are pro-Bitcoin. If we have all the candidates that are running pro, then I think my hypothesis for a $250,000 Bitcoin by November of next year will come to fruition. I think it's going to be a really good one. Big Ev says, both candidates should have been appealing to the undecided versus their own base. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I was talking with a friend the other day, and what I really respected about some of the debates, Obama was very good at this. I think Mitt Romney was very good. I think it was when didn't they race against each other? I seem to recall that they did. And they, they were very cordial. They were like, I like my opponent, but I think I can do a better job for your country. I like my opponent. Oh, it's a good point, Mr. Obama. They were very nice and cordial. I don't like insults. I don't like insulting people and berating people and calling people names. I just don't think there's a place for that. Just tell me how you can do your job and do it better, and stop berating people. I think that's what we should all be doing in life anyway, but whatever. Let's go to our markets. I want to get away from that election garbage. It will all happen in November, and I hope you all go out and vote one way or the other. Or you could vote like Richard Pryor in the movie Brewster's Millions. You could just say none of the above, right? None of the above. Make your statement that way. Bottom today was Bitcoin. Now, we've had a pretty nice rally in Bitcoin over the past few days, but today down just a little bit. You notice we had this long bottoming tail today. One of my friends asked me, would I call that a hammer formation? I actually would not call this a hammer formation on Bitcoin today. The reason being, it's not really at a bottom of a downtrend. So for those who might be new, I'm talking about this last candle. Let me zoom in just a hair here so you can see it. It's the one on the very right-hand side of my chart. By itself, if I did this, let's put it over here. Oh, I can't even get it off the screen. Never mind. By itself, yes, it would be a hammer pattern, but it needs to be in the context of the trend. In this case, what I'd be looking for is if it happened after this big red one that occurred on Friday, and it was down below that, then that'd be a really good-looking pattern, especially if it had high volume. Where it's at today, while it is bullish, because remember, at one point, this was a giant red candle. This was red all the way down to the bottom of the tail and then rallied back up and closed near the highs. So, in essence, by itself, that's a bullish thing, but it's not a hammer formation because that needs to be near the bottom of a downtrend, and it's not quite there. That said, still looks rather bullish, at least for tomorrow's activity. We'll have to wait and see. This is the futures market. You probably want to look at it on the spot market, which will give you a more clear picture. But down 0.58% on the day. I saw gold dip just a little bit, but I'm going back to our graphic. This is why I like putting on yellow boxes like this, because ultimately I don't really care what gold does until it gets out of this range. I do not own any gold-related financial products. I don't own GLD or GC futures right now, or miners. I don't have any of that stuff. I do have physical gold, and I'm not going to be selling my physical gold, so it doesn't really matter too much. But for those looking to make new trades or who are in gold, you have that channel, and if it breaks above it, that might be an opportunity for you to add and go for the breakout trade to the upside. If it breaks down below that yellow box, that may be the point where you want to lock in some of your profits as it may retrace here further. But right now, we're just stuck in a multi-week sideways action. I think it's a little bit too tight for you spread traders out there if you're planning on doing some spread trades, so probably don't want to do that one. Dollar index, same thing. We have this dollar index. I put the yellow box at the bottom because it's been oscillating back and forth between about 100.50 and 101.80, 101.90 is that peak there. So if it breaks out above it, there might be some nice upside move there, which would take us probably to about that 103 mark, which is where you see this origin of this last big move down that started on August 16th. So I'm okay with that one. Let's see if we can get a break above that. And if we do get above that 101.91 and get above this yellow box, then that changes the narrative of the dollar index right now. The dollar index has been falling, losing purchasing power against the euro, the yen, the pound, you name it. If this starts to rally back up, it changes that narrative, and all of a sudden, dollar starts to become stronger and may continue its uptrend. So that is your USD. Their 10-year, not really too much happening in the news session, but today we actually had a spinning top formation, and that's usually a representative of hesitation. When things don't really know which way it's going to go, you get topping tails, bottoming tails, and a small real body, which is what we had out there on today's action. So not much I can say here other than I'm still a believer that trend is going to continue to the downside because it's just what it's done for so long. So stay with that trend. Fourth place, Russell 2000. I sold puts on this yesterday. I saw it go lower today, and I was like, "Ooh, do I sell some more here?" I did not. I did not sell more puts today. I just kept the ones I got yesterday. We're at 2,106 to finish the session, up 0.24%, but a volatile day. Obviously, you guys all experienced that. At one point, the Russell was down over 2%, and we finished up 0.24. Phenomenal moves there for the dollar or for the Russell 2000. Now it just feels like it's just getting really choppy. Big swings up, big swings down. Does also have a hammer formation, by itself. But the same thing we saw when we looked at Bitcoin, right? It's after a little bit of an up rally, although it's 2 days in a row of these hammer formations. I would feel more comfortable with the Russell, looking at it from a bullish perspective and saying if we get above today's high, which is 2,109, then that might be a long opportunity. But it's got to open up below, which it's already in the new session, so that's fine, and then rip up above that. Podium time. S&P 500. I love the respect of that little trend line we drew up today, or drew connecting the lows. Drew that one on yesterday's show or day before yesterday. So we have nice little move up, compression, great bullish move of 1.04% on the S&P 500. Of course, everything in the broader market, including tech, really rallied today. But where is it going to go? My guess it's going to seek out this either previous high, where it was the origin of the move on September 3rd. That's where it sold off, or right into that overhead downtrend line. It's kind of slightly sloping down across the top. Let me get rid of some of these other lines because it's getting a little confusing here. I'll get rid of those. There we go. A little bit cleaner picture there. And then finally, we got two more. NASDAQ 100, of course, we looked at this already, benefiting from Jensen Huang's comments at the Goldman Sachs conference today, which really vaulted things to the upside, making him look like a little bit of a king today. That's why I made the graphic here. I said, show me Jensen Huang with a crown on his head, his bomber leather jacket. I mean, AI did a pretty good job. The face is a little off, and he doesn't have as much gray hair as Jensen does, but I think it still came out pretty darn good. And then finally, crude oil. I'd sold UCO yesterday. I sold a bunch of UCO yesterday. All in all, I think I'll be fine on this one. I sold the 65s and I sold the 64s on sorry, let me make sure I think it's 55. I gotta tell which one. So I sold the 65s and the 64s on USO, which, that was that catching that falling knife, but I was also catching it as it came into this low point for the last year or so. That's right around $65. So that was the first tranche I sold was at 65 and then also 64, all expiring on the 20th of September. And that does it. That does it for our top 8 marketplaces. For those who are looking at crude oil right now, you do have what's called a bullish harami forming today on crude oil. This will be very interesting, and I'll put a line right across the top for those that don't know how to trade a bullish harami. There's your line. It's at $67.97. And essentially, if it opens up anywhere below $67.97 and then rallies above it, I would say let it get above 68 on crude oil here, then that's a good buying, a decent buying opportunity because it feels like it's already stalled this sell-off, potentially starting to reverse, and a break above today's high would give that confirmation that it is a breakout move to the upside. How far will it go? That I don't know, but Could be a small little move, could be a big move. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see, what do I got for questions from you all? Merlin, what is happening with Bitcoin? I don't think anything out of the ordinary. It's just slowly drifting lower, which was the case after the halving. It's funny because we got that jump up about a month ago. At the beginning of August, we got this big, nice rally up, and I was like, oh, wow, that happened sooner than I thought it was going to happen. I actually anticipated it happening sometime in September. That was kind of always was my target when we did the show on April 1st. If you think I'm lying, you can go back and look at the April 1st show when we talked, or the April 19th show, when we talked about the halving. And the halving obviously makes it difficult because you have less supply coming onto the marketplace. It does hurt the miners because they make less money. But for whatever reason, Bitcoin drifts lower for 6 to 9 months after the halving. Well, 6 months would put us right around October, middle of October. So I still think this could drift lower. I don't think we'll break 50,000, but I think it could still drift lower. But coming up here within the next 30 days, I do anticipate Bitcoin having found its ultimate bottom and then starting that trajectory to the upside on its way to my target of 250 by next year. Merlin, what do you do if you have gold in a safe deposit box and the bank closes due to the Fed? It's a great question because I do have some of my gold coins sitting in a safe deposit box. If the safe deposit box closes, it's my understanding that doesn't get swept into the estate of the bank. That would get given back to you. I'm not sure. I don't know how that would work. It's a good question, Niall. Maybe I should go down to my bank and find out because I do have some valuable pieces sitting in that safe deposit box. Good question. Anybody know the answer to that one? I don't know off the top of my head. I would assume that the contents of that box would go back to me because they're not monetary assets. Could be important documents, could be pictures, keepsakes, things like that. I can't imagine that the Fed would say, oh, we're going to keep those, or it's part of the bank's estate. My guess is if the Fed did go in and freeze the bank, that's just cash and cash deposits, money transfers. I believe the box would be yours, but I don't know. It's a good question. Big Ep says, but I like Bitcoin basing it at 55, 56,000 versus a year ago at 30. Yep, sure do. I sure do. Big Ep, the reason he brings that up is that I believe that the Federal Reserve actually does control the safe deposit box function of a bank. And I'm not sure on that one. I have to do some research, but that's why I was questioning it. I'm not sure. Does AI know who Sam Seiden is? I don't know. I don't even want to ask AI. I could care less. I hope he falls off the planet. Karma will help him out at some point. That picture of Jensen Huang made me wonder. I know. I have another picture that might look a little bit better of Jensen Huang. Okay, what are the things you guys want me to cover for today? I'm trying to think of trades I made today. I just had my S&P short trade in the morning when he broke the I'll go to that trade just so you guys can see it. And it really wasn't a large one, unfortunately. I wish it was bigger. And it was the short side. I was going with the direction of the market that day. Look here, and we had these Globex lows, right, which were right around in here if you take out that one tail. So after that market opened up, that was my spot on S&P. I did one on S&P and one on NASDAQ today. So they're both the same trade. So here's your S&P, and if you look at the NASDAQ, I did the same thing at the same time. Here's the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ was much smaller because by the entry point, it had already sold off a lot. So on this rally back up, it stopped me out. So it still pulled a nice little piece out, but it was only on one contract. The S&P, same thing, but it was a much bigger gain. You had a lot more points in here, and this stopped me out coming into this bounce up here. So that one was actually pretty darn good. Go through the sectors. XLE, okay, let's check those out. Let's run down here to my little sub-screener here where I have all of those sector ETFs. And again, this is one where when I'm looking at my 1% strategy and I'm looking for opportunities, this is where I start. So I'm glad you brought that one up, Margaret. I like to immediately go through these S&P sectors and I just see what's getting beat down, what looks awful today. Because obviously there's premium there. And if energy, which yesterday I was actually going to sell some puts on XLE, but I ended up doing USO instead. That was my first piece was going to the USO. Energy.
All right, energy looking pretty bad right now. There are a couple other stopping points. I'm just going to draw those out here. This one I'm doing just because it's such a big sideways block. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly where that would be. You know, and you can make the argument that we're in that right now. And I go down to this tail here. Come on, click. There you go. We could make the argument that you're in that zone right now. And that zone on XLE goes from about 84.31 to 82.21. So almost a $2 range there. After that, you're really looking at nonstop straight down into this bottom that goes back to January of this year, which is right around 79, call it $80. So those are kind of the stopping points for it. And, you know, if I felt up to it, I would have had no problem doing XLE. Just the rate of return for USO was much better than XLE, so I went with USO. But yeah, energy is certainly continuing that trend to the downside, getting absolutely beat up. Look, the heat spell may be gone now. Maybe this will help out energy a little bit. Financials also on the day getting beat down. Now this is a hammer formation. You guys can see we've got this like 6-7 day slide in financials. You got a really long bottoming tail today. This could be a great opportunity for something to the upside. And one thing I would always like to look at is just what was the volume today. So it wasn't climactic volume. It's certainly elevated. It seems to be higher than what it has been over the past couple weeks, but nothing that's that crazy that would make me go, oh, this is a great trade. But it is a hammer formation at the bottom, or at least for now, what looks like the bottom of a shorter-term downtrend. IYR, real estate, not touching it. That trend is still really strong, even though it was down 0.35 today. Looks fantastic. Stick long on real estate. Healthcare. Healthcare also has that same candle we saw on XLF, although it's not quite at the bottom of that downtrend, kind of just chopped there in the middle, so I don't think that's that great of a setup here. You notice the last time we had something like this was a big shooting star back here, and it did have a few days worth of down movement. So maybe we'll get some upside move here on healthcare. Not feeling that confident on that chart, though, I'll be honest. Industrials, similar picture. I mean, everything today has that really long, extremely long bottoming tail, but I don't see anything here that just screams, hey, trade setup or good, better opportunity than we might have seen on like financials. Building materials, same thing as industrials. Nothing to speak of there. That's the Dow or the Russell. Utilities. Boy, that has got to be one of the best looking charts that you're going to see. This almost looks manipulated. Let's put on a simple moving average on this bad boy, and we can go really small. I bet you if I put on like a 10-period moving average, which is really tight, we've barely broken it. We actually have not broken it. The first time we broke the 10-period moving average was on September 6th. So your entry point would have been somewhere around July 7th or July 9th, and you would have just stayed out the entire time. That is phenomenal. You rarely see something that has that consistent of an uptrend, almost like a 45-degree upslope. The utilities looking absolutely amazing here. And maybe that's because the cost to these utility providers are dropping, yet they're keeping their prices the same. Their profit margins are staying the same. And maybe we'll see some regulatory pressure on utility companies to lower their cost of services to customers, even though they're making more money. Let's see. Lastly, right, Liz? That's a perfect 45-degree uptrend. That is a rarity to see something that nice. That is phenomenal. I mean, normally you're going to get little whips here and there to take people out. This is, in hindsight, no-brainer. Stay in it. Let's talk about consumer discretionary. Now, there's been a lot of talk about consumer credit and spending habits, and really that the consumer is the one that's driving this market right now. And that may be. Right? We may see that the consumer is the one that's actually pushing these markets higher. But this is a pretty interesting chart. I mean, we've broken out, right? We've been in this sideways action here on XLY for the better part of a month. Today, on today's candle, we broke out with decent volume. It's not climactic. And that's a good sign of confidence from the spenders. And does that mean that we're going to head higher? It does feel that way. It feels like we're probably going to head back up to that 194 mark and hit those peaks we saw back from July of this year. So that's probably one of the more bullish looking charts here. And of course, we've already looked at the S&P. So there you go. Margaret, a real quick run through between those top, 11 or 12 markets overall. What I want to do, and I haven't done it, I was going to build out an international setting here and just have here's the Nikkei, the DAX, the different regional Toronto Stock Exchange, just to see how other markets around the world are performing compared to us, which I don't do that on this show. I do for myself, and I'll go look at those, but I think I might incorporate that into the show as well. I own a bunch of XLU, just moving my stop up rugged. Awesome. Good for you, Liz. I wrote an article on this one a little while back. I can't remember exactly when that article was. I think I haven't written an article for Bar Chart in a long time. I really feel guilty. I kind of want to go back to them and see if they'll let me write for them again. It takes me so long to write an article because I put so much thought into it. Let's see, when did I talk about utilities? So, orange juice futures, dollar bottom market. So October 5th of 2023. That's when I was basically saying probably a good time to buy utility stocks. October 5th, 2023. Let's go see where we were on October 5th of 2023. I'll put a vertical line on that one. October 5th is when that article came out. Well, not too bad. Had about a week of up move. Sold off for 2 weeks. That's when I put that article out. Oh, this is SPY. I'm sorry. XLU. Yeah, that's got it even better. Goodness. Good. Why don't you listen to your own advice, Merlin? I mean, literally, I wrote that article at the dead low of the markets. I mean, the low price you see on XLU was on October 6th. The day after I wrote that article, the low price was $54.77, and we're now at $77. So you've got a $20 increase in it. Not too bad. Hey, Margaret, even a blind squirrel can find a nut every now and again, right? I was right in hindsight. I don't want to be a Sam and gloat about the things I was right on. I'd rather present and talk about the things I'm wrong on. I think that makes you a better trader. But yeah, that in hindsight, man, that was a good one. There was another one that someone asked me about. It was HE Hawaiian Energy. What's HAWAII? Forgot what that one was. Yeah, right. It was HE Hawaiian Electric. So you might remember this one. I wrote an article back here in 2023 in August when people were asking me about Hawaiian Electric and saying, well, should you buy it because it's down so much? And I said, no, you probably want to stay away from that thing. It still has gone absolutely nowhere. Oh, and this one will probably do okay. Just all depends on how it does emerging from bankruptcy. The one that really is probably the best article, which I think, at least the call from one of my articles, was JP Morgan. Look at JP Morgan's chart. I mean, this was just a beautiful chart. And we go back to that article, and I think it was called The 3 Banks I'm Buying Right Now. Let's see. 3 banks I'm buying right now. Where was that one? So long ago. Strong case for further rate hikes. Well, that happened. I was kind of right on the Bitcoin one. Huh. I wonder where one was. I thought I had like three companies leading the charge, driverless car. Oh, here you go. 3 financial stocks I'm buying right now. It was Bank of America, Charles Schwab, and JP Morgan. And that was March 14th. Wow. March 14th. That was of 2023. January, February, March. Wow. So there's your March 14th. The crosshair. JP Morgan was at 130, and now you're at 207. Not bad. Yeah, I'm on a run. It's funny because I do take some of these, but not all of them. Actually, I was long JP Morgan on puts, right? So I'd sold the puts on JP Morgan, I'd sold the puts on Schwab, I sold the puts on Bank of America. So I went into all 3 of those on those articles. So I am making the trades. I'm just, in many cases, I'm not buying the underlier. But Bank of America, that one's done very well since that date. And then this was the trickiest one of them all, which hasn't done as great just because that sell-off that's happened over the past couple months in Charles Schwab. XOU cratered at one point when people were favoring CDs rather than dividend stocks. I wish I would have loaded the boat. I wish I would have been loading the boat. And that's the topic of your next article, picking the low. No. Again, it's about finding value, right? In that article I wrote about 3 financial stocks I'm buying right now, I wasn't just arbitrarily going out there and saying, hey, the financial market's in turmoil, let's buy the bank stock that's the most beaten up. It was, which ones are too big to fail? JP Morgan, no way it's going under. No way. Bank of America, too big to fail. No way it's going under. It'll get bailed out. And then Charles Schwab, which wasn't really a bank, but it's in that financial space crossover, and a lot of people wrapped it up with the banks and, made arguments that they had exposure to long-dated bonds and they were underwater on those. I was like, I don't know about that. Schwab had their own issues at the time, but nothing that was bank related. So yeah, I'm okay picking bottoms in things that I feel are great companies. Just like I showed you with U.S. Steel the other day. U.S. Steel could certainly go lower, but I sold a bunch of puts on U.S. Steel. Those all expire on the 20th. If I get put U.S. Steel at my strike price, which was 25. So 25 is my strike on U.S. Steel. Great. I'm fine to own U.S. Steel long term at $25. We talked about other things like Rivian. Rivian's really been one of those stocks that just keeps on paying and paying and paying. The premium for Rivian, for those that don't watch it, is very high. And I right now have the $12 puts. So I sold the $12 puts, and it's just been staying above it. So every month it just keeps selling and been fantastic. I have been put Rivian one time. I sold calls against it. It got taken away. Okay, fine. It still has not been a losing trade for over a year in Rivian, just by selling those puts, and then if I do get exercise, selling calls against it. And I know there are some of you out here who may get your calls taken away. I know Lisa's like, dang it, my calls may take my shares away, but they may not. You probably still have some time, so don't worry about it yet. If it happens, it happens. Don't worry about it. You made money on those trades, Liz, or Lisa, so that's fine. All right, let's go look at economic calendar for tomorrow. That's really the topic that I got to get into before we wrap up because it is so important. So let me close these bad boys out and go to Thursday. Now, we had the CPI numbers today, which looked great. We have two really important things happening tomorrow, and this is very interesting. You have the EU tomorrow, and they're expected to cut significantly. They're looking at 0.6 basis points. Or 60 basis points, excuse me. Going from 4.25 down to 3.625. That's an aggressive drop. And remember, they've already cut one time. So they did a 25 basis point cut. Now they're sitting here, and the expectation is they're going to do a much bigger cut. I would find that somewhat surprising, but that's what's expected to happen at 5:15 in the morning tomorrow. You also have at 5:30, 1 hour before the markets open. That is going to be in the U.S. markets and Pacific time. So 1 more hour before the markets open. The core PPI and PPI numbers coming out. So you have those two pieces before market opens. Those will also be very anticipatedly looked at. And then you scroll down to the bottom here. You do have the ECB press conference at 5:45, which, depending on what that rate cut is, they'll have a lot to talk about. So you got to be careful with that one. You have natural gas storage, bond auctions, and that's pretty much it for mañana. On the earnings front, I don't think I had it all set up here. So let me just bring up the earnings calendar so you guys can see. Not a lot. One major name, and that's Adobe. Oh, why did it disappear? Let me go by market cap. Great, now my computer froze. Huh, I could have... Was that today with Adobe? I thought that was for mañana. Interesting. I'm pretty sure on my economic calendar... Oh, there it is. I don't know why. Now it shows up. So Adobe is reporting tomorrow. You also have Kroger. That's pretty much it as far as the big earnings companies. So you had Oracle, Monday after market, and Adobe reporting tomorrow after market. So there we go. Overnight futures might move a lot. Well, you never know. Every time something happens in this market, there's always that potential. I love it during the election night. That is a wild one. The Hillary Clinton Donald Trump election was absolutely insane. It was one of the most memorable after hours I've ever seen, and it was one of the easiest ones for me. Maybe as we get to that time, as we get near the election, I'll walk you through that trade again, what happened and how I did it. It was pretty fun. All right, cool. That's going to do it for me, everybody. I thought we'd be done in 30 minutes, but now it's almost an hour show. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you have something you want me to discuss, this is usually driven by your comments and questions. So send them on in. It's tradermerlin@gmail.com, or put them down below any of the YouTube videos. I usually respond to all those comments that are on there. And I've seen a bunch of crypto questions lately. I'm going to try to maybe save up a bunch for specific days so we don't kind of have crypto take over this show, which I don't want it to do. And I know some people don't like crypto, so I'll probably save those for next week. So gather them up, send them on in, and I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.